Hello, and welcome to this course, workshop, talk on the regenerative paradigm, a new way of seeing from surviving to thriving in health, life, and society. I'm Elizabeth. I'm a somatic transformation coach. Somatic means of the body or the soma. So I'm trained in neuroplasticity and making change through real shifting of nerve pathways and the plasticity of our bodies. A quantum energy healer, a former forest school teacher and nature mentor, interpreter, regenerative wellness practitioner, sociologist, consciousness explorer, and soul initiate. And here's a few images of just some of my adventures in the course of putting together my life's work, from being a mindfulness-based nature teacher out in the wilderness with children, to being a part of ritual and collaborative groups, making new waves of energy in the world, to living amongst Indigenous people, to working with my own clients in my somatic alchemy coaching practice. I really want to zoom out and talk about why this work is so important, and really get like the big picture scope, right? So we are living in an age right now where it's hard to deny that many systems in our world are falling apart. And it can be scary and chaotic. I believe, and I've seen from what I've observed through all my studies and experience, that this is because we have become disconnected from the rhythms and principles of nature. You could call them also the nature codes. So, another way of defining trauma is that trauma is the rupture which leads to ways of operating that are ultimately unsustainable. You could say trauma is a coping strategy for this rift between ourselves and our original nature codes, the rhythms of nature, and principles of nature. So I really see that soul loss is another way of talking about the trauma that's compounded across generations, and various systems. And so we can see that these broken systems have similar patterns of trauma and soul loss, whether we're looking at something from our own individual health to education system, the way that we work, our financial relationships, our relationships with other people, our parenting and family relationships, and the environment at large. So this presentation is really also going to help pull together the ways that these things are, though they might seem like different areas, there's really similar patterns, and there's a way of looking at the challenge and the solution for them. So, um, I've always been interested in regenerative systems since I was young, as witnessed from those previous pictures I shared with you. But I really had sort of the climax of my journey and my own personal eco crisis a few years ago, when in late 2021, the picture on the left was taken shortly after my dad died in the COVID ward after being fairly healthy 64-year-old about to retire, going into the COVID ward suddenly and basically not coming out again. So I sat against that tree. That tree supported me as I looked at the screen of my phone and said my final goodbyes to my dad, who was in a coma, but speaking to him energetically. And on the right is the photo of me taking a nap with my cat the following year. And I do look really exhausted in this picture, which does paint a picture, but I also want to say that this was consider what you might consider a good moment for me, in that I actually was able to rest. The degree of pain and symptomology in my body following the COVID vaccination was severe, to the point that it was a miracle that I survived. Um, and so my body became like a war zone. It became like a ecosystem that was completely deprived of oxygen, literally, and close to organ failure. And all the systems were completely out of whack with nature's codes. I was not able to sleep at night. I was fatigued during the day, could not do anything. Temperature, nerve patterns, seizures, everything was operating the opposite of how it's designed to when things are in sync and the nervous system is and the immune system are operating with coherence. So, my story is that really that crisis became an initiation for me. Um, Modern medical methods could not heal me. And so, what it forced me to do was learn to regenerate my own body by discovering my natural blueprint, my own nature's codes, my own capacity to source for myself through my nervous system, my soma, my intuitive body, my energy body, and my soul to source the path forward in healing for how to reconnect with nature's codes. So during the time of recovery, I learned a few lessons. And the first one is that the microcosm is in the macrocosm. I knew this conceptually, but I learned this as an experience, truly. Um, Meaning that um, I was not just going through this thing in my body, but that my body was also reflecting challenges and issues in the world around me and the culture and the planet. And so there was a parallel process there. This also meant that I was not alone, that what I was going through was something that was connected to a larger experience on the part of the planet. Another lesson that I learned is that nothing is random, the universe is ordered, and even symptoms are wise. That there's really a vast intelligence that's beyond our intellectual comprehension, and that it can be trusted and that it's benevolent. So, even one of my most challenging symptoms was this intense inflammation throughout my body that was really on the verge of completely like annihilating me. However, learning that the inflammation itself was actually not the problem, but it was a messenger telling me about a deeper problem, which was the profound amount of toxicity that my tissues needed to clear. Um, and I can get into that later, but the what I discovered about the toxicity, but just to say that it was a combination of physical toxicity as well as emotional, energetic, psychic, and other types of toxicity, um, which is getting a little bit more into energy medicine, but that ultimately my inflammation was wise and that it was not the problem. So there was a higher order to it, even though it was incredibly painful. So what I learned from this was that it's not enough just to make the symptoms go away. If I had just made the well, first of all, I was at a point where I couldn't just make the inflammation go away. Any drug or anything I would try to take to suppress it would just actually make the problems worse and um, probably would have been the end of me. But in a less intense and acute situation, I may have tried to make the symptoms go away. And I wouldn't have learned this lesson, which is that if we actually lean in and listen to the symptoms, we can transform them from a state of suffering into a state of empowerment. We integrate the lessons that they have to teach us. We gain empowerment, freedom, and strength by alchemizing them. Alchemy is another word for transformation, turning lead into gold, turning something from a lower, denser state into a finer state through a process of transformation. And finally, I learned that when we heal, we regain our agency, our sense of personal power in the world. So this is like so much better than just not having symptoms anymore. It's a whole new way of being in the world in which your personhood is restored in a deep, profound, and existential way. And when we become empowered, we free our dharma, kind of just like as that authentic self comes through, Our purpose, our joyful contribution, our soul work in the world just emerges pretty much effortlessly. And it's not a burden, and it doesn't lead to burnout because it just bubbles up inside of us and takes us on a beautiful journey, which I'm happy to be in right now. So, what makes a system regenerative? Here's how I define the regenerative paradigm. Instead of just targeting the symptoms of an issue, we bring health back into an entire system, and the symptoms rebalance themselves. A quality of the regenerative paradigm is that wholeness is the default. So, nothing within that system is broken. Every part has wisdom. Regeneration is about integrating the parts and not eliminating or suppressing them. Another quality of the regenerative paradigm is that right relationship is the foundation. So we really look at the relationship between things as a way of thinking about issues in the regenerative way of looking at issues. So that can be with yourself, the way that you relate with your inner parts. It could be with the way that you relate with other people in your life, the way you relate to nature herself, the way you relate to your time, and the way you relate to purpose and your activities. In a regenerative system, different parts work together in unified resonance, much like a symphony with different instruments. Another word for this is coherence. The uniqueness of each part is supportive to the coherence of the whole. Okay? The uniqueness of each part is supportive to the coherence of the whole. So, this is a decolonized model of care. It's one in which we welcome to the table as contributory the diversity of experiences that are here to share in our experience. And finally, another principle of the regenerative paradigm is that life generates more life. So it's really evolutionary in nature. Not only does it repair the past or repair the rift or repair the trauma, but it actually accelerates and takes things to the next level of evolution. So vitality builds upon itself, much like a sprout growing out of the ground. And so there is movement in the process, movement towards a greater and more vital and more abundant experience for everyone involved. So, yeah, my experience was in my body, but the regenerative paradigm operates across all systems. So, because health in the system is defined as harmony between the parts, a symptom in any system is a messenger that some kind of repair is needed. So I'm going to go through some slides now to share some different examples of how we can see this pattern in different areas of society. And so something you might want to do to kind of involve yourself in this a little bit is to think about a time when a challenge arose in your life in any area, and you tried to fix it by just trying to make the symptom go away or address the symptom, or seeing the symptom as a problem. Um, but that did not ultimately resolve the challenge, or maybe it resolved it temporarily, but it kept coming back in another form, or popping up in another area of life. So this could be something at work, something at home, in your life with your family, in a relationship, in your body. Maybe you have health symptoms as well. And maybe just hold that in the back of your mind while I'm going through these examples. And, in any of these examples I'm about to share, there's a whole lot of dialogue that can happen within each example. But for now, let's just go through and start to see the pattern that's similar as we look across all the systems. As we enter the regenerative portal. So, starting with the body and the symptom of pain, right? Or sickness, body, physical sickness. It could also be mental or emotional illness. Treating pain as an enemy with suppressive medication would be the old paradigm. In the regenerative model, we would understand pain, which leads to deeper life alignment, as I explained happening for me, and increased energy. I will add this because I didn't share it before in the part about healing, empowerment, and stepping into your Dharma. That what I discovered when I leaned into the inflammation and didn't see it as a problem, it taught me not only how to address physical, lifestyle, nutritional, and other things that needed to change in order to clean my physical tissues out of toxins, it also taught me how to realign my life, my relationships, my work, my habits towards people pleasing, and how I had faulty boundaries in certain areas or where I needed to just change my entire way of operating in my life. So, this is what I mean by deeper life alignment. In the old model, we have medical systems or support systems or systems of care in which the providers are overwhelmed and so they operate in a transactional way. In the regenerative paradigm, we have practitioner patient partnership and relational care. There's real presence and relating. In the old model, if you're having a hard feeling, it means something is wrong with me or something is wrong with you. In the new model, in the regenerative model, shadows hold the key to transformation and lead to wise guidance. In the old model, which you could call separation consciousness, also scarcity consciousness, um, we live life isolated, managing things on our own. Could be physically alone, as this woman in the image, or emotionally alone, though surrounded by others. In the regenerative model, we really truly live life in connection with mutual curiosity and care and real presence. In the old model, conflict is a problem and leads to power struggles. Me versus you, us versus them thinking. In the regenerative model, challenges lead to growth and an opportunity to deepen intimacy. So we don't think of the challenge or the disagreement as a problem. We actually take it as an opportunity to gain deeper coherence and intimacy and to evolve the relationship. In the old model, when we're having challenges with parenting where children are behaving in ways that are over the top or hard to deal with, we see bad behavior as a symptom as dealt with through punishment, right? The authoritative model, which many of us had in the last few generations in our post-colonial world. Intergenerational shame and trauma is carried forward. In the new regenerative model, it's a more attuned style of family life and parenting in which the challenges with the children just mean there's more time needed and attention to attunement and creating an environment that has regulated rhythms for thriving and connection. In the old model, we have compartmentalization of family roles, right? So you see parents who are basically just the task managers or the laborers making the lunch, cleaning the kitchen, doing the things, and children as entertainers, like over on the side playing the Game Boy or doing something in a compartmentalized way, not together. So they're sitting in the same kitchen and they're not connecting. Whereas in the regenerative model, we have co-learning and contribution encouraged across age ranges. So, in this picture, mom gets to also be curious and following her playful impulse, and the children are enjoying it in their own way and participating as well. And so everybody is sharing the learning experience together across the ages. In the old model, we have education Gosh, the look on that guy's face. Memorization and compliance is what we, base our education system on. That's what we think success means. Whereas in the regenerative model, we really emphasize self discovery, whole body sensory learning, social skills, and neurodivergent learning styles are not a challenge, they're contributory. They discover their own forms of leadership. So, again, diversity is not a problem. It just leads to more rich of a symphony in the system. When we're looking at work and leadership, the old model is really so hyper focused on productivity that it supersedes relationality. So efficiency is always best, even if it means long hours, alone looking at a screen or misaligned just work that doesn't actually contribute to the world's greater good, but it's more and better productivity. And sort of the emphasis on productivity kind of can make turn a blind eye to like alignment and true sense of meaningfulness. So, and when burnout happens in that system, mm, it's not the problem of the system, it's the worker. Worker needs to go take a timeout, go take a vacation, get themselves back together so they can get back on the assembly line. While in the regenerative model, there's a focus on collaboration, creativity, trust building, shared values, and creating an environment for aligned productivity and positive impact. Real teamwork, real solutions that are really tuned into the problems of our world, not just trying to make a quick buck, but really tuned into real abundance consciousness. This is also connected with the economy, right? Where we see materialism, consumerism, and products that are created. They're short-lived dopamine hit type products, right? Designed to distract us from the ways that we're not feeling aligned in life, and they end up adding to the world's waste. They're not recyclable or compostable, and money or wealth itself is hoarded or spent impulsively, right? Those are both two sides of the same coin. They're neither of them are truly like resting in the energy of abundance. Whereas on the right in the regenerative model, we see that wealth and value circulates freely, just like blood in the body that's well oxygenated. It uplifts through reciprocal, wholesome exchanges. I go down to the farmer's market. I buy a cabbage from someone who grew it in healthy regenerative soil with healthy microbes grown in this local environment that my body understands the nature codes of. And I give life to someone who I know and love by giving them money for that exchange. In this wider view, you could say culture at large in the old system is self-absorbed, has myopic vision. Myopic means narrow vision, seeing only one hyper-focused option. And that's related to scarcity consciousness, right? And there's a nervous system component to this. When we're hyper-focused, we only see such a small tunnel vision. And we lose this wider perspective, which is that we have the resources around us in our village and our people, in nature, and the beauty and craftsmanship around us for the possibility to live interdependently, which is the truth whether we're aligning with that or not. We are interdependent. Sense of belonging and intact community can come out of aligning with that. And this fosters real cultural resilience. And, we see this split also in religion and spirituality, right? So, in the old model, religion or spirituality is based in fear about doing it right. It's a real shame based model where our souls are seen as dirty or broken or full of shame, and they must be cleansed by an authority, someone outside of us, like a god or, sorry, like a priest. Or in the ancient days, it could have been a god. sanctioned by God, right? Whereas in the new model of spirituality, the regenerative model, we really, it's really based in the awe of the mystery of existence. Souls are sacred and have direct access to the divine, right? So you see a spiritual leader who is not doing it for anyone or telling anyone how to connect with God or spirit or the universe, but is simply inspiring. And together they share in a collaborative, non authoritative way in the experience of delighting in the mystery of existence. So, at the level of the environment itself, in the old model, we treat Earth's resources as objects, managing problems through quick fix solutions, right? Like, oh, we ran out of oil, we ran out of a resource, we will go extract it in a different region, or we'll use a different resource, but it's still a harmful method that doesn't actually get to the root of the problem. Whereas in the regenerative way, we restore whole ecosystems. We see every species and element as playing a vital role, and humans ourselves get to join that web of life again. We rediscover our place in the web of life. And zoomed all the way out, looking at our home from outer space. In the old model, control of Earth's elements leads to a drained, depressed, eroded home. While if we choose to live in harmony with the elements and with nature's codes and rhythms, this leads to a thriving and healthy world. So, because things are so out of balance in our world, due to sort of the accumulation of this compounded trauma and soul loss that I shared about at the beginning, regenerativity, which for ancient people would have just been not even a concept, it was just like, yeah, this is how we live. It's a form of social justice, though. In these days, it's really a form of social justice because when we focus, because if we define the old model as hyper focusing on the symptoms, that would be akin to focusing on fixing broken people instead of thinking the systems themselves need to change, right? Do you see this? How there's a shift in perspective here from, ah, these people are suffering, they must be broken, they need to be fixed, to, the people are struggling because there is the system is compartmentalized and fragmented instead of coherent and regenerative in nature. And the system is what needs to be healed. So if you feel broken, or someone you know and love feels broken, it may not be because you are the problem, but because our greater environment is in dire need of restoration. I say this a lot to my clients and in my talks, like, you're not crazy is kind of what I'm saying. You're not crazy. You are picking up, if you're sensitive, if you're someone that feels things and is challenged by what's going on, you're not crazy and you're not the problem. You're actually someone who's picking up and feeling oriented to the imbalance in the way that we've lost connection with nature's codes. Like a plant needs healthy soil in which to thrive, people need a healthy culture in which to thrive. And I love this quote by Tricia Hersey. To resist is to soften into the powerful proposal of thriving right now. So, yeah, if this was your call to social action, to resist is to soften. This is anti-burnout social activism. Soften into the powerful proposal of thriving right now. Thriving in the moment, deserving to thrive and feel well and abundant and have these needs met, and is the regenerative way. It is a choice to live in a different paradigm than the one that is still caught in trauma. Trauma is the gap that happens when we lose track of our true self and its interconnection with all things. So, when we heal trauma, we excavate buried treasure that enlivens and empowers us to channel our soul's purpose in this world. It's really a worthy journey to embark upon. And if you're wondering if this is you, I mean, really, it's everyone in the modern world. Um, a one way that you can check in is if life feels out of reach in some way, like real living, like real aliveness, real generativity. Here are some symptoms that I put together around just getting a quick taste of whether maybe you have some of these ways that soul loss presents or that trauma can present, right? A feeling of not having a voice, feeling of being crippled by doubt or inability to really move forward on your life's path, feeling like a victim or feeling trapped, feeling like life is burdensome. Another one is feeling really hollow or empty inside or like starved for a certain kind of attention. You might feel uncomfortable, inflamed, or numb in your body. So your body is not really a pleasurable or pleasant place to be. You might feel at the whims of addictions, whether really intense, harmful ones, or whether they're simple ones that are actually healthy if in moderation, but they're not happening in a way that's really a co thriving relationship with the substance or with the behavior. You might feel shame about who you are. You might feel like you're dragged around by events or emotions of other people. And you might feel like your purpose is just like you can't find it. It's out of reach. And the good news is that modern day neuroscience has finally caught up with what the ancient animist cultures knew. We can access our natural blueprint, those nature codes, buried beneath the layers of trauma and conditioning. They're still there. So the trauma is on top of it like layers. It doesn't go away. It's just buried. And with that natural blueprint, when we tap into it, we can heal every arena of life from the cell to the planet. So just to give a taste of that ancient wisdom, this is a little quote from Dr. Melissa Saunders um, about sort of when a baby would come into existence, be born into an indigenous tribe. Um, the community would listen for their song. Anytime that that person would fall short later in life, like if they started to stray off the path, instead of punishing them or reprimanding them or disciplining them, they would simply play them their song or sing them their song just to remind them of who they are. It's this really positive way of becoming realigned. Yeah, very similar to healing trauma, rehoming ourselves. We stray, we don't get punished for it. We just hear this beautiful song of ourselves, of our soul, and then we remember, yes, I want to stray. This is really where I want to be going now. So, in the modern world, we can do this actually. We can do what the ancient people did through singing songs to people to remind them of who they are, through healing our nervous systems and the nervous systems of our loved ones by reconnecting with our natural blueprint. We live within nested systems, nested nervous systems which resonate within one another. This is similar to the concept of the microcosm and the macrocosm. So we have whole systems within our self. We have a fractal of the whole universe inside our nervous system. This means that we actually can have the power to change the ecosystem of our nervous system, and it can have profound impact upon the world and changing the systems. So once we realize it's not our fault, we're not broken, it's actually a larger system, we can also then take responsibility and say, oh, I am a fractal of that larger system. So if I can heal that within myself, I can heal that in the world. And the two go together. So now I want to take a moment to do a really simple practice to help us have a taste of this nested support. I just shared a lot about all of these ways in which the old scarcity minded or fragmented consciousness looks, and the way that it could look and can look and does look in some areas in the regenerative paradigm. Talked about the microcosm and the macrocosm. We are so often focused on an area where we don't feel like there's enough. Maybe it's within ourselves, maybe it's within a relationship, maybe it's at school or work, maybe it's in our politicians, maybe it's in our region, our planet. But if we realize that all of these systems are speaking to each other, singing the original song, nature's rhythmic original song. Nature's original song is flowing through us. It's in the blood that moves through our body. It's in our heartbeat. It's in the oxygen flowing in and out of our lungs. And so let's take a moment now, and wherever you are seated or sitting or standing or lying, feel through your senses the way that your environment is holding you without you having to try. The way that your seat or the ground is holding you up. The way that your spine is holding you up. The way that your breath is coming in and out without you trying. The way your cells are communicating to each other without you trying. And feel yourself also now sort of expanding your awareness to connect with the earth beneath the floor, the dirt and soil and microbes and deep mycelium and roots and living organic matter that's literally below you. And expanding up to feel the air and the currents and the clouds and weather patterns up all the way into outer space and stars, nebulae, galaxies, literally above you and literally all around you. The elements, the ecosystems of Earth, the plants, the oxygen in the air, the smells of plants, temperature, warmth, coolness, and connecting also with a layer of all the people in your life who you cherish, whether they're nearby you or in another room or in another state or on another continent, or whether they've passed and their souls are communing through the veil. Just feel in a spatial way your connection like several cords and tethers of light to all of the beings, past, present, future, human, animal, plant. even star, element, stone, water, that you feel connected to in this web of life, in this web of existence. Feel yourself as nested in rings of support that start at the tiniest of your cells, expand out to your skin, out beyond your skin to your room, out beyond your room into your neighborhood, out into your region and your country and the world, and all the way out into the wide cosmos and beyond, into the mystery which is unnameable, but in which we all dwell. And just taking a moment to breathe together in this space of plugging back in to the reality of our interdependence, our interconnectivity with Indra's net and the web of life. That this is reality, not just an intellectual fantasy. So take a breath into this. And let me ask you this. What if our aim is not to mold ourselves to fit this world, but to become more ourselves and thus make this world richer? Reversing that paradigm of having to shove ourselves into a box to fit something small. Instead, having the courage to unpack the ways we've compacted ourselves and to blossom into the light and contribute to the world and literally change the fabric of reality by becoming more ourselves. And so, having taken in all of this, remembering that thing that you brought up in your mind earlier of a challenge in some area of your life, can you imagine a different possibility for yourself in that area from a regenerative perspective? And maybe in this more spacious awareness, this more spacious nervous system tapped into the web of life and the reality of regenerativity, maybe an answer comes in that creative space of having a more fluid, right brain inclusive way of being that you hadn't thought of before. If not, that's okay too. The conscious solution is usually the last piece of the puzzle that is lived into when we have the courage to feel our way into the world differently first. So just notice how you feel differently after listening to this and doing that practice of nested support. What do you feel differently now? Is your breath different? Is your mind quieter? Are you feeling more receptive or contemplative? More calm? Or if you're someone who tends to be tired and draggy, maybe you feel a little more enlivened, a little more alive. Just notice. This is sacred work. Sacred means treating all facets of life with respect and cherishing. So, for me, another definition of regeneration is bringing soul or the sacred back into an ecosystem, bringing soul back. I like the phrase by Charles Eisenstein in Sacred Economics, bringing the sacred back to the commons, bringing the soul back to the body, bringing the sacred back into a family structure or a lineage, a culture, a planet, a way of being. So, what happens when we live this way, regeneratively, in the regenerative paradigm? We come alive. As is said in the Gospel of Thomas, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. We restore our souls to our bodies. We heal the fragmented parts of ourselves. We reconnect to the support that's all around us. And we touch back into our inherent magic and innocence. And we build an oasis. This is a well-known quote in the world of coherence and systems thinking and neuroscience. When a complex system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the entire system to a higher order. So, for this reason, I have built the Body and Soul Sanctuary. This is a project of my Dharma, of my soul's contribution. One small contribution in the regenerative movement, which is large and gaining momentum in so many ways. This is my contribution that I'm proud to share. In the sanctuary, we weave together nervous system healing, ecology, and soul into a regenerative journey of transformation, which I call the metamorphosis process. We really ask this question: how can my symptoms be a gateway to transformation? How can whatever my challenges be seen as something wise? And learning to listen to that somatic intuition, to lean in and get guidance, take our challenges into the cocoon to transform them and take them through the alchemical process. In the sanctuary, we go through 4 phases, really starting with a basis of nervous system regulation, really cultivating deep, grounded compassion that's biological, not just Pollyanna, like true, real, gritty compassion that is a biological resource that literally changes our neural circuitry. Then we move into activation and eustress, allostasis, finding wise effort to literally change different facets of our life that are caught in the old paradigm and helping shift them into the regenerative paradigm. And that moves us into a state of transformation in which we learn to live in the world as a butterfly emerged from the cocoon. We learn to live in the world in a place of leading from the regenerative paradigm, really like operating with that as our anchor and making waves of change, like real impact in that. And finally, integrating identity, evolution, and mystical surrender, which is really becoming so integrated that this is like on where we start. Spiritual teachers start to talk about ego death, and really we become almost like a channel for the work, and it lives through us, and we really get to rest in a place of being a vessel for the mystery. And we go through this process in 12 phases that follow the cycle, a life cycle of a plant, from soil to seed dream to nourishing the mineral to taking form and rooting into the ground, to reaching and rising as a sprout, to receiving the resources of the world through the sun and the sky, and then detoxing and clearing and removing obstacles through the weed, emerging as the flower, blooming, collaborating and pollinating among fellow regenerative, resonant souls and spirits, harvesting the fruit of our work in the form of a kind of legacy, and then eventually harvesting and composting our hard work and returning to deep restfulness in the mulch, which will become the soil again over the course of the winter into the spring. So, really tuning into nature's rhythms, really tuning into the reality that this map is available to us every year and every season, and the earth and the cosmos have not forgotten this and is still guiding and nudging us, and we can align with those energies to heal ourselves and our culture. And we do all of this in the sanctuary, in the container of a sanctuary, the culture where we don't have to do this alone. We can be inspired and uplifted by other people whose processes are either similar or different, and that difference creates positive creative tension, and it enhances our process and helps us see ourselves more clearly, like the multifacets of a gem, reflecting back our process, but sharing the shared value of evolution and living into the regenerative paradigm so that we don't get lost in environments that are not doing that right. It's quite rare these days. I mean, it's becoming much less rare, but it's very easy, I should say, to. I was going to say it's becoming less rare to find these intentional group growth containers, but it can be really hard to maintain the discipline to really undergo such deep transformation without having real midwives, real collaborators, real witnesses who are holding us to it, not in a disciplinary way, but in the way of that ancient tribe that I mentioned before that has been paying attention to the song that's wanting to be sung and wants to sing it back to us to inspire us and motivate us to become that self that is not only a contribution to the world, but that is fully happy, alive, and thriving. Because these two things do not have to be separate. The separation of my happiness and the world's happiness is the old paradigm. In the regenerative paradigm, these things are one and the same. They feed each other back and forth. Some results that, if you are someone who's curious and working with me and in the sanctuary, these are different areas of life where you might experience some positive change in your physical, mental, or emotional health, in your relationships, your ability to change your habits, your ability to make better decisions, have healthy boundaries, feel more in charge of your time, your choices, that ability to really see the long view and create real sustained well-being for yourself in the long run. Yeah, and having your abundance consciousness where you see that when you invest in your well-being, you are giving the world the best gift possible, right? No more denying yourself, and real turning towards that soul, right? Really turning towards you and discerning what's a surface desire from what's a deep soul desire, because that deep soul desire, if you nourish that, it ultimately will, even if you can't see it yet, be much better of a contribution to the world and loved ones around you than just going through motions that are not aligned with that. And you really deserve to take the time, even if that means taking a break from ways you're overgiving or overdoing temporarily. For me, I was stuck in my house for pretty much 2 years without being able to barely even go to the mailbox. I could do a couple of things here and there with help. I had to really release any sense of guilt around not showing up for other people. And now it's quite beautiful the way that I can help people in a really different way than before. These are just some fun, different ways of thinking about how the sanctuary can serve people: a place of respite, a school of learning, a healing temple, an alchemical laboratory. It can be a stepping stone or garden bed from which to spring into life, a central plaza to gather and exchange, a resource hub, library, place to be witnessed, place to celebrate, to clarify and capture your dreams, practice wise relating, to really meditate and see your life from a bigger perspective, and a place to practice your dharma until it sings. Um, at the current moment, the sanctuary takes place online with live calls over Zoom, an online classroom, monthly sessions with me in BioSync, my training in neuroplastic rewiring and somatics, and community building on an online platform. Uh, this is just how it's starting out, but it may change, and the dream is eventually to have a hybrid situation where we are actually hosting in-person experiences and retreats on a regenerative piece of land and allowing that vision to come into fruition in its right timing. This is for people who are burned out with a broken system in their health and lives, whether that's like chronic illness or inflammation, neurosensitivity, um, whatever the thing is, the issue you're having with the system. Maybe it's scarcity consciousness, maybe it's feeling unhappy in relationship or work, looking to exit the matrix. That's my way of talking about the old system, and re-engage in the world from a place of soul purpose. So yeah, I really think that this time in history is really epic, and it can be really scary, but if we lean in the way of alchemy to transmute instead of suppress the symptom, right? The symptom of the systems falling apart in our world can be scary, but we can lean in and listen to how to transform that lead into gold. We can take our world into the cocoon and allow it to go through the messy but beautiful process of dissolving and finding those imaginal cells, those cells that are going to reorder and recreate themselves into the blueprint of the butterfly. The imaginal cells are akin to our natural blueprint. They are what remain the same even while all the other things slough off and die away and provide that continuity for such an intense process of death and rebirth to occur. So let's lean into our imaginal cells and ride this wave of change, yeah? Uh, because, like I said, we have so much power, so much in this microcosm that is a small universe within the larger universe, but operates across all of these nested structures and layers of the onion. So if you become who you are meant to be, you will set the world on fire in a really good way. There is my website if you want to reach out and connect. And yeah, I encourage you to take a moment to really notice how this presentation has affected you, what resonated with you. Were there any new ideas that excited you or challenged you? And if you have any questions or if you're interested in a presentation for your group or classroom, or if you are an individual interested in joining the sanctuary, feel free to look me up at my website and reach out, and I would be happy to continue passing along the torch of the regenerative paradigm and see what the best way to connect you with the next step for your further thriving might be.